Hi, everyone, and welcome to the LTH product briefing. I'm joined today by Ben Stoneham, the founder and CTO of Autologyx. Welcome, Ben.
Great. Hi, Nikki. Thanks very much for having us here today.
It's such a pleasure. I know we're excited to hear more about Autologyx Catalyst. Can you tell us a little bit of background about yourself and Autologyx and the product we're here to see today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much. So Autologyx is a second time around business for me. I had a business prior to this in the CRM space, actually, which we exited in 2013. And, sometimes happens as you're going out of one business, you come across a really interesting problem in another area. And that's exactly what happened here. And so the Autologyx business came in off the back of the previous one. We spent a couple of years developing it. We took it to market initially in 2015. Initially, you're solving problems, sort of risk compliance problems, particularly in the staffing area, which is where the previous business has been. And then we found that actually the law firm market, we had a great fit with what the product could do, what the capabilities, particularly around automation and data, could do for law firms. And in the last 3 years, we've then had the opportunity actually to take what we learned from building the first platform and apply it a second time around with a whole new, literally no shared code from scratch platform, which is called Catalyst, which essentially takes all of the original capabilities but wraps it in a very, very modern API first user interface, which was designed around the idea that the end customers should be able to build out all the solutions they want to themselves. So really making us as a business very scalable, because we don't have to rely on professional services and some of the things that perhaps the original platform needed a bit more of.
That sounds fantastic. And really what you're here to show us then is this platform that has been designed, although you don't just serve legal, but predominantly for legal around not just workflow, but also process automation, focusing on data. Is that fair to say?
That's actually right. And our principal focus is law firms and in-house legal teams. But as you say, we've got lots of customers who are perhaps neither law firms nor in-house teams, but are using it for legal processes within other sort of operational areas of their business. So, we're very happy to talk to anybody. We've got some great customers in financial services, still a few in the recruitment sector as well. But really today, we're mainly dealing with law firms. We were discussing a little earlier about where the sort of entry point for us is, but it's certainly, sort of top 250 within the UK and up. So, we're probably not dealing with the smallest law firms, but we can solve problems for people right the way through the range, through the global law, which, we've got a lot of our customers in that bracket.
That's great. Well, let's jump in. I find often with this type of platform, the best thing is to actually see it in action. Love to see a demo, Ben.
Yeah, very happy to do that. I think, one of the things people always, they ask me, the first question people ask is, what are the use cases? What can I do with this platform? And I think, the great thing about showing it is that the use cases people put it to are very, very broad. The sort of general characteristics around data, process automation, managing work, allocation, workload, document automation, all those things cover so many different processes, right? But it does pose a challenge when I've got to show you a whole platform in 10 minutes. So I think what I will try and do today is just take you for a very quick spin through really two main user personas. So lawyers and his associates who are actually interacting with the system. And then behind that is the sort of IP, our business, the thing that makes that all possible, which is the ability to build out the solutions as an in-house law team. You might be a business analyst being asked to solve problems for an attorney. You'd be using these tools to build the solution to do that. So what I'm going to do, I've got a demo on the screen here, which we set up for ILTA this year, which is showing the capabilities of the product in and around a real estate portfolio management solution. But the really important point about Autologyx is that actually the general capabilities around data and records management and document automation and so on mean it can just as easily be configured as I have in this second system for managing transactions in a financial services capability context, where the capability is all around managing trades and settling the trades and making sure the right contracts for the right trades go to the right people. And it's exactly the same underlying platform technology that's doing both of these use cases. So I'm going to stick with the real estate use case because it's got some nice examples of the hierarchical data that we deal with that really differentiates us from many of the other automation solutions that are out there. Important thing is it's end to end. So we are about the processing and managing of work from the beginning right to the output. We're not about automating data in other systems particularly. You're doing everything within ours. So I've logged into the system. I'm looking at a nice landing page where if I was an associate or somebody coming in to do work, it's got sort of summaries of different views of the data. I've got buttons that will take me through to different areas. And this landing page has all been configured and built using our drag and drop user interface designer that I'll have a look at when we look at configuration in a couple of minutes. So I've got a Power BI report in here. I've got links through to my matters. I've got links through to other content and data within the law firm.
Sorry to interrupt, but the underlying data in respect of the matters would also sit in the platform. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And the platform's designed, because we deal with a lot of service provider type applications, the platform's designed so the law firm could choose to have one platform with lots of customers in it, but what we would call logically separated by permissions and those sorts of things. But they can also have multiple copies of the Autologyx system sitting alongside each other. And in that case, the data is completely separate. So it's individual data storage per customer and encryption and all those things completely separate. But what you're looking at here is, as you say, just one system. So I'm just going to spin through the user interface a little bit here and just to give you a bit of a feel of how records can be managed. So I'm looking at a listing page here for clients. So this is a system where you've got a hierarchy of data. You've got clients, and then under the client sit portfolio of properties, and the individual properties, and so on down the hierarchy. I'm looking at a listing page here, and this is quite a nice example of how everything is configurable within the product. So as an attorney or somebody working with this, I can go in and I can change the columns that I see. I can change the order that the columns come in and the sort and everything else. And if I move between computers, it remembers all that stuff too. I've got quite a nice contextual panel over on the right-hand side here. So I've just clicked on that top record, and it's given me some further information about that record that once again can all be designed for the specific use case we're talking about. And another quite nice feature is the way in which the user can then change the layout of the screen according to their available real estate and the way that they like to work. So a classic use case here is you might have a side panel where you've got a document in it, right? And the document relates to the client in this case. And I can then click through the list and I can see the document for a given client in a given field change as I go through it. I can tear these panels out too. So, in a situation where you've got two monitors side by side, as I and lots of people increasingly do, I can have a document on one monitor and my main working record on the other. So the context dependent stuff on the right-hand side, that includes some really nice inline help. So just describing the page and the things that you're looking on. It's got a built-in document automation capability, so allowing you to pick up Word templates and merge against data that you're looking at in context. And of course, we've got activity logging against everything. So one of the big use cases we have is in and around compliance-driven process. So we've got to be able to prove who, what, when, where something happened. And we've got some very robust ways of recording all of those things. But let me just drill down, because if I double click on one of those rows, that takes me into the top level record for this particular client. And I say top level because actually, again, where we are different from so many other platforms is that we deal with that hierarchy of data. So I've got a client up the top, Capital Realty Group, and you can see on the main page, they've then got a set of related records underneath, which is their portfolio of properties. And I can click on one of those, and over on the right-hand side, I now get a summary of some data to do with that child record. I can drill down, I can go into that record, and I can keep going all the way down till we get eventually to the matters associated with a specific property within a specific portfolio. So what do we got here? So we got 120 Broadway in Manchester in the UK, and you can see there are several matters open for that. And I go and double click on one of those, and again, we get the page come up. And that just gives me the opportunity to talk through a couple of the other capabilities on this page. So the form that you're looking at here, this entire design has been built for this use case using drag and drop within the system configuration area. And that's what I'm going to have a look at next. But it's got some quite nice features on the page. You can see here, for instance, I've got this visualization. I've just got a pie chart. This one's showing me how many tasks I've got outstanding for this matter. And in this particular example, I've just got one. So we've got single color in the pie chart. So if you imagine that a task around renegotiating a lease for a cell tower, which is one of the big use cases we have in the US, a volume of leases against cell towers. There's lots of data that needs to be captured captured as part of that. And this task here is inviting the user that task has been allocated to provide a whole load of additional data in order to get the task completed, which could include uploading files, providing confirmation things have been done, and so on and so forth. Lastly on this page, I'll just quickly talk about the ability to pull data in from the record and manually create documents against it. We do document automation really in two ways in the product. We do a lot of automation where it's against the background process. So the process automation engine can automate document creation at scale. But we also have the option as a user working on a record to go in and pick a particular template and go and generate a document against it. And we've got a really nice integration with Word that allows me to pick up a template, click on it, open it in the system, and it merges the data straight in, as you can see just there, has put it into Word. And if I was, on the other hand, creating the template, we've got an integration with Word that allows me to pick up the data structure straight from that record. I don't get weights, and I can just gives me a list of the fields, tell me what types of fields they are. I can drop them into the template, and I've got all kinds of great functionality around a sort of logic. If this is true, put this in. That ability to start at one level and work down the data model, that's something people use us for a lot. It's something that people really struggle with, systems that flatten the data out. You wind up with just tons of duplication, and you can't do things in real time. You have to take a snapshot of the data, stick it into shall we say, an Excel style sheet, and then just create a document against it. This is real time. This is actually against the source of truth, the data as it is in the system.
And Ben, for the data in this area, presumably what you could do is ensure that you were pulling data on a regular basis and notifying people of updates, and those kinds of actions are feasible from here as well.
Yeah, 100%. So the key capability that our process engine has is that it's connected to the underlying database directly. So if you've got a record, so say I've got a record for a property in my portfolio, and I'm particularly interested in watching to see when some aspect of that data changes. And if it changes in a particular way, I want to fire off a whole series of tasks for people to do. And it doesn't matter whether it changes tomorrow or it changes in 10 years' time. Our engine is watching that data continually. It's what we'd say, it's event-driven. So there's a change in the underlying data. I just want to talk briefly about the design of data, because we've got some nice visual tools for doing that. We are a data-centric legal tech solution as opposed to a document-centric legal tech. So we deal with documents. But documents are a representation of underlying data, aren't they? The relationships between people and entities and obligations and so on. And what we allow people to do is to actually run the process according to the unpacked data, of which documents are a part of that. So what you look at here is our relational database design. This is the model that we've got for our real estate portfolio management. So you can see you've got client records at the top. Clients have got portfolios. Portfolios have properties. Properties have matters. And this is all drag and drop. So if I wanted to pick up a lease summary record and I wanted to attach that underneath a matter, because as part of completing a matter, I wanted to record a summary of the lease, I could drag that table over, it joins it up, and I can change the conditions for it and so on. A lot of the emphasis in the product is around providing user journeys, though, that have guardrails around them. So, I know one of the things people always worry about is, well, if I build out my data model, how do I then know that I'm not going to break it if I design a process and I then change something? And we've got a lot of capability in around that. So, if I try and pick up my site table up here and I try and move it under document intelligence, for instance, it doesn't allow me to do that. So it warns me and tells me why I can't do it. And there's a lot of that sort of stuff built in.
And this structure, Ben, I imagine is why something you're able to do is to replicate a solution quite easily, because it has the underlying same or similar relational model.
Exactly that. we've got a law firm that custom built a solution actually for managing something very similar to this in real estate. And they employed some developers. They built it 7 or 8 years ago, and they've done the classic thing where they haven't maintained it. And they've been looking at, well, what do they need to do to rebuild it? To rebuild that in traditional code would be months and months of work, development process. They'd have had to then have committed to maintaining it. They can get exactly the same result, but using visual tools to design the data structure. And then having designed the data structure, they can also use visual tools to actually build the forms and those sorts of things that the lawyers are going to use. So having built the data structure, you can then automate it. So this is a visual drag and drop environment that allows you to pick up and design. I've got my real estate at the top. I could decide that for a given real estate matter, I wanted to generate a document against it. So I can drag on a document automation component. I can connect them up, and I to set some rules. So to say, well, actually, I only want this to trigger if a particular field value is equal to something. So, is quarterly payment equal to particular date range? Yes. Generate the document, and I then want to send that document out via email.
Does it do inputs as well as outputs? So you could send a call out to a website, for example, or
absolutely.
So once you establish the data model, it then allows you to take that data model and build on it with different actions and processes depending on how the data across the model changes.
That's exactly right. So this kind of the process layer that sits over the top of the data model, and then on top of that, there's the user interface layer where the lawyers and associates are going to interact with the system. So you've got those three things blended together, and that's kind of what makes it different from everything else.
Thanks, Ben. That's great.
All right, I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ben. Take care. Good to see you.